Welcome to School of Joy. Today we're going to be like your favorite history teacher, taking a field trip through the Old Testament.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, no pop quizzes though, I promise.
Good, because I didn't study.
All right, so we've got a stack of verses here from Genesis all the way to Chronicles, and we're going to explore them together, kind of unpack them and see what they're all about.
Sounds fun.
Okay, so let's imagine, right, in the beginning there's nothing. There's just void, darkness.
Right.
And then boom, God creates light.
Yeah.
And then he separates the water from the sky. He forms the land. It's like this massive cosmic construction project.
I love that analogy. It really captures that sense of order out of chaos, which is so central to the creation story. I mean, we see that theme, right, repeated again and again throughout history and all these different cultures.
Yeah, it's like a universal question.
Right.
Where did it all begin? But the creation story doesn't just stop there, right? Then we meet Adam and Eve. They're hanging out in the Garden of Eden, living a good life, until, of course, that talking serpent shows up and tempts them with the forbidden fruit.
Trouble.
Paradise lost. Talk about consequences, right?
Oh, yeah, big time. And I think that's why this story has resonated with people for thousands of years, right? Because it really taps into those fundamental human experiences, the desire for knowledge, the temptation to disobey, and then dealing with the fallout of our choices.
It makes you wonder, what was so special about that fruit anyway?
Right.
Like, what was the big deal?
Yeah.
But let's move on to a story that's a little bit more, well, splashy.
Okay.
Noah's Ark. An epic tale of destruction, renewal, and, of course, tons of animals.
And a very specific timeline. I always found this fascinating. The text actually says the earth was dry on the 27th day of the second month.
I know. I always wondered about that. Why that level of detail? What do you make of it?
Well, I have to remember that these stories were passed down orally for generations before they were actually written down.
Okay.
So those very specific details, they were likely mnemonic devices, memory aids, to help people remember these stories and retell them accurately.
It's like ancient people had their own version of note-taking apps.
Exactly.
Speaking of taking notes, we should talk about Abraham.
Okay.
So God promises him a new land, countless descendants. But there's a bit of a catch, right? His wife, Sarah, she's unable to have children. It's a story of faith, patience, a whole lot of waiting.
Abraham's journey is really like a cornerstone of the Old Testament. It establishes this concept of the covenant, this special relationship between God and the Israelites.
Right.
And the fact that Sarah is barren, it adds this whole other layer of complexity because it really underscores the miraculous nature of God's promise.
And let's not forget that whole part where Abraham pretends Sarah is his sister.
Oh, yeah.
Not once, but twice.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about awkward family dinners.
I know, right? Well, you got to remember it was a different time.
Right.
Different cultural context. What might seem strange to us today, maybe even deceptive.
Yeah.
Back then, it might have just been a way to survive.
Right.
Like a pragmatic solution in a world that was pretty dangerous and uncertain.
That's a really good point. It makes you appreciate, I don't know, the relative safety and stability we have today.
Right.
But then comes the ultimate test of faith. Right?
Okay.
God asks Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac.
Oh, wow.
I can't even begin to imagine what that moment must have been like for him.
It's one of those stories that really stays with you. It raises profound questions about faith, sacrifice, obedience. Really makes you think about the bond between a parent and a child.
Yeah, I mean, imagine trying to explain that one to your family and friends.
Oh, I know.
Okay, so Abraham's story, right, is full of twists and turns. We've got Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot and his family trying to get out of there.
Right.
And then Abraham sends his servant to find a wife for Isaac.
Right.
And that's where we meet Rebekah.
Yes.
Who not only offers water to the servant, but also to all of his camels.
I love that detail.
Attention to detail.
Right. It just says so much about her character, about her generosity. I mean, hospitality was so highly valued back then. And, offering water not just to the man himself, but to his animals, too. It just shows a level of thoughtfulness and kindness that's really remarkable.
It's like the ancient version of holding the door open for someone.
Exactly.
Okay, so moving on to Isaac, I kind of see a familiar pattern emerging here, right? He also pretends his wife is his sister.
Really?
Yeah.
Father, like son.
There's like a family tradition at this point.
I wonder if it was, maybe it was a strategy to protect their wives in a world that was often hostile. Or maybe it was a cultural thing that, we just don't fully understand today.
Right, right.
It's interesting to think about how traditions and behaviors can be passed down even when, well, maybe they're not the best ideas.
It makes you wonder what traditions we have today that people will look back on the future and be like, what were they thinking?
Oh, I'm sure there are plenty.
Right. And then, of course, we come to the classic sibling rivalry story,
Okay.
Jacob and Esau.
Yeah.
Jacob, he tricks Esau out of his birthright, wrestles with God, even gets a name change to Israel.
That's quite a story.
It's like building a resume, but on an epic scale.
The story of Jacob is all about transformation.
Hmm.
He's struggling to find his identity, his purpose, and that wrestling match with God, it symbolizes that inner turmoil, that fight to understand who he is and what his role is.
Wow.
And then the name change, right, to Israel, that represents a new beginning,
Right.
a new identity.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate coming-of-age story, but with divine intervention.
Exactly.
And speaking of families, Jacob ends up working for Laban to marry his daughters,
Oh, yeah.
Leah and Rachel.
More family drama.
Oh, yeah, more drama ensues, but eventually he ends up with 12 sons, the future 12 tribes of Israel, building that foundation.
Exactly. It's all connected. The Old Testament, it's really a family saga.
Hmm.
And each generation builds on the one that came before it. And their actions, they have consequences that ripple through the future of the Israelites.
It's like a giant family tree, and each branch is a new story, a new lesson.
Oh, like that.
And, of course, we can't forget the Joseph saga.
Oh, Joseph.
He gets sold into slavery by his own brothers. But then, talk about a plot twist. He rises to power in Egypt and ends up saving his family from famine.
What a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Joseph's story is one of those that just grabs you,
Yeah.
It explores these themes of jealousy, betrayal, forgiveness, and ultimately the enduring power of family ties, no matter what.
It reminds us that even when things seem incredibly difficult, there's always hope for redemption.
Exactly.
So we've seen how that foundation of the Israelite nation was built, right?
Right.
But now things are going to get really interesting.
Okay.
We're turning the page to Exodus. This is where things really heat up.
Ooh.
We've got plagues, burning bushes, parting seas.
The special effects budget for this one is huge.
I know, right? It's like the ancient world's biggest blockbuster movie.
Exodus is really a story of liberation on this grand scale, right?
Yeah.
We've got the Israelites, they're enslaved in Egypt, crying out for freedom. And then we have Moses, this reluctant leader chosen by God to lead them out of bondage.
It's a classic underdog story for sure.
It is.
But what I always found fascinating was how God uses these incredible displays of power to confront Pharaoh, right?
Right.
Like turning the Nile into blood.
Oh, yeah.
Swarms of locusts, darkness covering the land. It's almost like a cosmic showdown.
It is. And, each of these plagues, they can be seen as a symbolic blow against the Egyptian gods. It's like demonstrating that Yahweh, the God of Israel, is more powerful.
Right, like God was saying, okay, let's see who's really in charge here.
Exactly.
And then there's the Passover story where the Israelites, they mark their doors with lamb's blood to escape that final plague, the death of the firstborn. Such a powerful image, and it's something that's been remembered and celebrated for centuries.
Yeah, the Passover lamb, it becomes this symbol of sacrifice, of redemption.
Right.
It's a reminder of God's protection and the importance of obedience and faith, even when things are terrifying.
It's amazing how these stories still resonate so strongly today, thousands of years later.
I know, it's incredible.
Speaking of things that have stood the test of time, we have to talk about the 10 Commandments.
Okay.
Moses receives these on Mount Sinai, and come on, these 10 rules, they've shaped Western civilization in ways we probably don't even realize.
They represent a shift from tribal customs to this more universal code of conduct,
Right.
establishing these principles of justice, respect, responsibility that have influenced legal systems and ethical frameworks all over the world.
It's like the ultimate cheat sheet for living a good life.
Right.
Now, I have to admit, Leviticus is not exactly the most exciting book in the Old Testament.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's full of laws and rituals about sacrifices, cleanliness, holy living. Sometimes it feels like reading a rule book.
It can be a little dense.
But I'm guessing there's a deeper meaning there, right?
Absolutely. Leviticus, it might seem like this dry list of rules, but it's actually a window into the ancient Israelite worldview.
Okay.
It shows us how deeply their religious beliefs were intertwined with every aspect of their lives.
So it's not just about following the rules blindly.
No.
It's about understanding the deeper meaning behind them.
Right.
How they connect to this larger spiritual framework.
That's it.
Okay, so let's move on to Numbers, where the Israelites wander in the wilderness for 40 years.
40 years?
They must have had some serious packing skill.
They must have. Those 40 years, it's a period of testing, refinement, and really preparing a new generation to enter the promised land.
Right.
It's about letting go of the old ways and embracing this new identity, this new way of life, living in covenant with God.
It's like the ultimate group project, but with a lot more complaining, right?
Right, there's definitely some complaining along the way.
And speaking of complaining, we can't forget Korah's rebellion,
Oh, yes,
where he
Korah.
challenges Moses' leadership and faces some pretty serious consequences for it.
Korah's rebellion, it highlights the importance of unity, of respecting authority,
Right.
especially in a society where leadership was seen as directly linked to divine guidance.
Right, like don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we have Deuteronomy, which is basically Moses' farewell address to the Israelites.
Mm,
He reminds them of everything they've learned,
right.
the laws they need to follow, the blessings that come with obedience. It's like the greatest hits of the Moses era.
It's a powerful reminder of that covenant between God and the Israelites,
Yeah,
a call to remember their past, to live in a way that honors that relationship.
it's like a pep talk, a final exam review, and a heartfelt goodbye, all rolled into one.
It really is.
Okay, so now let's cross the Jordan River into the Promised Land with Joshua. After 40 years of wandering, they finally arrive, but conquering this new land, well, it's not exactly a walk in the park.
No, it's not. The conquest of Canaan, it's a complex and challenging part of the story.
Right.
It raises questions about war, about the treatment of the people who were already living there.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even in these stories of triumph, there are always complexities and nuances to consider.
Absolutely.
And then we have the book of Judges, where the Israelites seem to fall into this cycle of bad behavior, repentance, and then deliverance.
It's like they keep missing the point of Deuteronomy.
Right. It's like they need constant reminders to stay on track.
That cycle of sin and redemption, it really reflects that ongoing struggle between our better impulses and, well, our not-so-good impulses.
Right, right.
And the judges, they're these charismatic leaders, often flawed themselves, but they're raised up by God to deliver the Israelites
Interesting.
and remind them of their obligations.
And we meet some pretty fascinating characters along the way. Deborah, Gideon, Samson. What a clue.
They are a colorful bunch.
It's a good reminder that God can work through anyone, even those who aren't perfect.
Right. It's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to answer the call.
Even when you're not sure you're up to the task.
Exactly.
And then we come to the book of Samuel, where we see this major shift in Israelite society.
Okay.
They transition from a theocracy, where God is seen as the direct ruler,
Right.
to a monarchy, where they have a human king.
That is a big shift.
It is.
It reflects a desire for stability, for a more visible kind of leadership.
So it's like they traded one set of challenges for another.
In a way, yes.
And of course, no story about kings would be complete without some drama.
Right.
So we have Saul, the first king, who gets consumed by jealousy when David is chosen by God to be his successor.
It's that classic power struggle.
It is.
And you know, David, despite his flaws, he's portrayed as a man after God's own heart.
Okay.
A leader who really tried to do God's will.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it was difficult, yeah.
And David, he eventually becomes king, expands the kingdom, establishes Jerusalem as the capital. He's a warrior, a poet.
A complicated figure.
But he also makes some pretty bad choices.
He does. David's story reminds us that leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about striving to do the right thing, learning from mistakes.
And relying on God's guidance.
Yes, even when we stumble.
So it's like a masterclass in leadership with a healthy dose of humility.
That's a good way to put it.
And then we have Solomon, David's son, who inherits the throne.
Okay.
He's known for his wisdom, his wealth, and, of course, building that magnificent temple in Jerusalem.
Solomon's reign, it's a time of peace and prosperity.
But his story also has this cautionary element to it.
It does.
Right. About the dangers of excess, the importance of staying true to God's commands.
Even with all the wisdom and wealth in the world,
Right.
true fulfillment comes from following God's ways.
And then after Solomon's death, the kingdom splits.
Oh, yeah.
Israel in the north, Judah in the south.
Bengal drama on a national scale.
Right. It's a reminder that even the most united nations can be torn apart by internal divisions.
And by failing to live up to those principles that unite them.
Okay, so we've explored the rise and fall of kings, the struggles of a nation, but there's one more book to cover.
Okay.
Chronicles.
Chronicles. It offers a different perspective on everything we've been talking about.
Okay.
Focusing on the importance of the Davidic dynasty,
Right.
the importance of religious observance, and the temple.
So it's like a recap, but with a slightly different spin.
It's like looking at that same painting from a new angle, you know?
I like that.
You notice things you didn't see before.
So we've come a long way, haven't we?
We have.
From Genesis to Chronicles, creation to kings,
Wandering in the wilderness.
building a nation. It's been quite a journey. But what does it all mean? What are the big takeaway from all these stories?
Well, it's incredible how these ancient stories, they still speak to us today. They wrestle with these big questions about faith, about leadership, family, what it means to be human.
Like they're saying, hey, we've been there, done that, and here's what we learned.
Right. So what are some of those big lessons we can take away?
Well, I think first and foremost, the Old Testament really emphasizes the importance of relationships,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Between God and humanity,
Right.
between individuals, families, even a nation and its leaders.
It's about connection,
Yeah.
covenant, and the responsibilities that come with those bonds.
Yeah, it's like this giant web of interconnectedness
Exactly.
where every action has a ripple effect.
And second, the Old Testament, it really highlights the importance of choices
Choices,
and facing the consequences of those choices.
right from the.
From the very beginning, Adam and Eve in the garden,
Right.
to the kings who led the Israelites astray, it's all about choices, big and small, shaping destiny.
It's like that choose your own adventure, but with, cosmic consequences.
Exactly.
And I think also the Old Testament points us towards hope, even in the midst of hardship,
Yeah.
betrayal, failure, and
Redemption.
redemption. Think about Joseph, right?
Oh, yeah. Great example.
Sold into slavery by his own brothers, but ultimately rising to power and saving his family.
Such a powerful story.
Yeah. It's a reminder that even in those really dark times, there's always potential for change, for growth, for good to come out of it.
So as you continue reading and exploring the Old Testament, keep those lessons in mind.
Right.
And think about how these stories connect with your own experiences, your relationships, your own journey of faith.
It's like a lifelong homework assignment,
It is.
but a fascinating one.
The best kind.
Exactly. And hey, if we can learn from the mistakes of kings and prophets and patriarchs, maybe we can avoid a few of our own along the way.
That's the goal.
So from ancient stories to modern dilemmas, it seems like the Old Testament offers this timeless wisdom, this guidance,
It really does.
and reminds us that we're all part of something bigger, this story that began a long time ago and continues to unfold all around us.
Exactly. And as you think about all these stories and the journey of the Israelites towards the promised land, what is your promised land?
Wow, that's a good question.
What are you striving for individually and collectively? What challenges await you? What triumphs await you?
A lot to think about. So from biblical journeys to our own personal quests for meaning, it seems like we've got our work cut out for us.
We do.
Class dismissed, but keep those thinking caps on.
Yes.
There's always more to explore and discover.